Hello friends, welcome back to the First Gen Money channel. This is a channel for all things money, lifestyle from a first gen millennial's perspective. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about some financial to-dos based on the amount of time that you have available. I don't know about you, but for myself, the end of the year is always like the best time for me to look at things that I've been putting aside and not doing. This is like my time where I really try to get things done before the new year. Of course, without overwhelming myself. So I wanted to share with you some financial to-dos based on how much time you have. Giving yourself a to-do list of 50 things you need to do before the end of the year is not only unrealistic, but it is a way to just like burn yourself out instead of using this time where, if you have time off of work, you're able to just like relax and enter the new year with a calm energy instead of a like countdown of all the things that you have on your plate. So I have a list of 5 things you can do in under 5 minutes, 5 things you can do in under 15, and 5 things you can do in under 30 minutes. Why don't we go ahead and get started with 5 things to do in under 5 minutes. Number 1, you probably could guess this. I've been talking about this in my last several videos, but open a high yield savings accounts. The rates are increasing right now. Talked about this in the debt payoff video where the Fed increasing rates is actually benefiting our savings and hurting us if we have debt. So take advantage of this, open a high yield savings account. Don't overthink it. Go on NerdWallet, search the top high interest savings accounts and just pick one. Pick one. Doesn't need to be all that complicated, though definitely make sure that it is an FDIC insured bank. Don't delay, it takes 5 minutes. It's an online application, get it done. Number 2, if you already have a savings account, create buckets. Create buckets for 2023. What are you thinking about saving for? What things are coming up? Create buckets for that. I already have a bucket set up for wedding, travel. So create your buckets. What things are coming up in 2023 that you want to start saving for? Number 3 is calculate how much money you spent on holiday gifts. It is still fresh in your mind. I just finished holiday shopping yesterday and I'm done. So it was yesterday. I could make a list of what I spent. And then you want to divide that by 10. Just divide it by 10. You're gonna take the total of how much you spent buying holiday gifts and divide that by 10. We'll get back to why we're dividing it by 10. What are we doing with this later? Number 4 is open up your calendar. We're gonna do 2 things. Number 1, invite yourself to a future date, money date. 30 minutes, 60 minutes, but set some time aside for you to like go deeper into these things. Number 2, take a look at what's going on in your calendar. Do you have events there? Is that where you keep things that are coming up? If you don't, maybe put people's birthdays so you're already mapping out how your life events really line up with how you're spending your money. Put all of those events into the calendar. And last thing to do for 5 minutes and under is make a list of all of those expenses that happened in 2022 that kind of shocked you a bit, that left you feeling like, oh, what? That's a lot. Just write it down. What was it for? Your guesstimate of how much that cost. That's all you're gonna do. Look back at the last year. What were those shocking expenses? Now you have 15 minutes. What can you do? What 5 things can you do in 15 minutes or less? Number 1, we're gonna go back to that example about the holiday gifts, your total divided by 10. Why did we do this? So now you have your number, the total cost of your holiday gifts divided by 10. Let's just make up a number and say that you spent $1,000 on holiday gifts this year. You divided it by 10, that's $100. Now you're gonna set up a sinking fund for holiday gifts 2023. So you're already planning for next year's holiday shopping. A sinking fund allows you to save money for future expenses. So you know every November you want to partake in Black Friday and get people the gifts that you want at a discount. You want to have that money before December, which is why we are not saying save 1,000 in 12 months. We're saying 10 just to give you a buffer to like actually prepare to buy gifts. So create a sinking fund using one of your accounts that you just opened, your savings account that you just opened. Number 2, we're going back to the major expenses. We didn't guesstimate. We are probably right, most likely. If it was a shocking expense, then we probably got that number right. But let's double check. Did the numbers, were they accurate? Let's fix them if they weren't. You're gonna go deeper into questions about that expense. Were you prepared for this expense? Did you have the money for it at the time, or did you rely on debt? We'll go back to number 2, but I just want you to get it written. Why was this a shocking expense to you? Just so we can start thinking about how to maybe change things up moving forward. Also, one that you've probably heard me preach a lot lately is number 3, calculate your emergency fund or your got my back fund, whatever you choose to call it. Let's calculate what you need to get your own back. First, you want to know, do you have one? If you do, how much is in it? And then whether or not you have an emergency fund already, I want you to make a list of your monthly must pays and your monthly wants. And I don't mean like I go shopping every month, so that's gonna be on it. No, I mean like the things that you have, like the recurring payments that you make that are wants. So must pays and your wants. Make a list of all of these. You're gonna calculate this total by 3, by 6, and by 12. So those are your 3 options for emergency funds. Do you have 3 months? Do you have 6 months? Do you have 12 months? Where do you stand? This is where you ask yourself, do I have an emergency fund? If so, how many months is it covering? You could also take the total that you have in your emergency fund right now and divide that by the total of your must pays and your wants, and that'll give you a smaller number of the months that you might have available. Number 4, check your accounts. We're gonna check our accounts. We're gonna check our retirement accounts, our checking accounts. We're gonna check all the accounts. All the accounts. What I want us to focus here on is look at your retirement accounts. How much did you contribute this year to your 401k, 403b? How much did you contribute this year to your Roth IRA? What do those numbers look like? Are you happy with those numbers? Do you feel like there was room for improvement in those numbers? Then you're going to check to make sure that your money is invested. Now, if you are using a robo-advisor, they're already handling it for you. Just make sure that you have selected and answered all the questions that you need to go through those steps of them figuring out which investments make sense for you. But if you don't use a robo-advisor, then you want to make sure your money's not just sitting in a money market account, not investing. Other account that I want you to look at is, yes, your FSA. Who thought we would talk about an FSA? Well, many companies vary. Some companies will let that money roll over to the next year. You'll have until March to spend your FSA. Other companies do not. So if 1, you don't know, find out what your company does. 2, if you still have money and your company doesn't roll over, make sure you are using your FSA money. I'm definitely gonna use it. I have to get new glasses, I have to fix my existing glasses, and I have 2 therapy sessions before the end of the year. So I'm using my FSA. All right, now we're gonna get into the longer to do, the 30 minutes or less. So I have a list of 5 things that you can do here. Obviously, like I said in the beginning of this video, you don't need to do all 5. Just do one. Just do one, right? Do the one that's most important to you. Let's start with number 1. Evaluate you. What does that mean? Think about the last year. Did anything change in your life, status? What's going on with you? And does that change your money situation? Or what do you need to do for this change of situation. So for example, I got engaged in October of 2022. Been putting this off, but it's been on my to-do to open a joint checking account with Ari. We have a lot of bills that we pay together, and we're just kind of tired of the Venmos. We are tired of Venmos. So it's time. It's time to open that joint account. It's been taking me a minute. So before the new year starts, I'm gonna do that. If you purchased a house, or something big happened, or like you had a child or got married, or something that either makes someone dependent in you, or now you have a liability that makes people depend on your income for, then you might want to consider life insurance. That's just another example. But there are several things that could have changed. Maybe your roommate got engaged, and now you know that the lease is coming to an end in January or March, and you're gonna have to find your own place. That's a change in situation that you want to think about. All right, number 2. Let's go back to those major expenses that we talked about. Can we make a list now of the ones that are going to be coming up in 2023? Are these going to be recurring payments? Are these going to come up again? If so, let's plan for them. Let's plan for them. Now we know that we were kind of like sticker shocked when they came at us last year or in 2022. Let's plan for them. And here's where we go back to the sinking funds. So we created a sinking fund for holiday gifts, but sinking funds are for anything in your life. Ari and I pay for car insurance once a year, just one big lump sum payment to get a bigger discount on the bill. And this means that come October, we have about $1,500 to pay for the insurance. And we want to prepare for that. We want to be preparing for that payment so it doesn't feel like a big expense coming at us at once. So like we did with the holiday gifts, take the amount that you suspect you will have to pay in 2023 for that same expense and divide it by the months that you have to save for it. So let's say it comes up for you in August. You have about 7 months to save up for that expense. So you take the total and you divide it by 7 months. That's how you get the total that you have to save a month for that expense. There you have it. You created sinking funds. You have the amount that you need to contribute towards it on a monthly basis. Stop there. Number 3 is kind of an addition to number 2. So I said, you are saving every month towards this big expense, this big sticker expense. But you want to make sure that these contributions are falling in line with your regular must-pays and wants. So this is where splitting your paycheck comes into play. You probably have your paycheck going into one account. But what if you split that paycheck to go into several different accounts? So for example, I have my paycheck going to my checking account for bills, my checking account for fun, and my savings accounts, which then gets routed to their specific budgets. So you can keep a minimum of 3 accounts. That's it. That's all it has to be. This is a game changer. Trust me, I did this, and it's just so much easier to save when you aren't having to mentally think about moving from your checkings to your savings. So this one's really important. Number 4, we're gonna track our expenses. Take a look back at November and write down every single thing you spent money on. Every single thing. I want you to look at where the money went. Any surprises here? Does this sound about right? Anything that's like out of the ordinary, just circle, make a note of it. Okay, for our last thing, but obviously not any less important, you need to evaluate your career. Are you happy? Are you happy where you are? Are you happy doing the work that you're doing? That's one aspect of it. How are you feeling towards your career? What things interest you if you aren't happy doing what you're doing? What things are lighting you up? What are some of the things you want to explore? And then we're also going to do a money audit. Did you get a raise? Did you get a raise last year? When was the last time you got a raise? How much are you making? And I want you to go a bit deeper and find out what the average salary is for your role. Again, we talked about Latina Equal Pay Day. We need to really understand how much we're making and how that compares in relation to what the average of our salaries are, or of people in our positions are. So that is your evaluate your career audit. And there you have it, your 15 things to do before the end of the year in whatever amount of time that you have. If you do any one of these, let me know which one you picked. End of the year is always like a fun time for me. So I'm excited to have a week off of work and be able to focus on bringing in the new year with some clarity, especially around my money. So I will see you all next week. Take care.